Hey guys, everyone, welcome back. This is our new episode of Jetil Podcast, and we're here eventually gathering with our guests. So our second host, as usually, Aidos is here.
The Grandmaster.
How are you,
Kung
man?
Fu. I'm good, man. How are you?
Third time for today.
I'm always the Grandmaster of Kung Fu. You know it, man. That's
Cool.
how I go through life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Been a while.
It's nice to
Welcome,
have
everyone.
you.
How are you?
Yeah. And our second guest for today, our native speaker, foreigner, as usually.
Our guest.
Tara.
New guest.
Hello.
Tara, how are you?
Welcome.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
We're good.
Yeah, it's good to have you here.
Yeah.
Welcome to Kazakhstan. Welcome
First,
to our podcast.
first Scottish on our show.
Oh, okay.
What,
Yeah.
what an honor for you.
All of the guests, all the previous guests were from
Can
Britain.
you add some music when you said first Scottish? It's like Scottish background music. Real quick.
Some
Couple of seconds.
bagpipes.
Yeah, exactly. So, how do you like Kazakhstan? I mean, I've heard you've been staying here for 2 years now.
Yeah. I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I was like pretty surprised when I came here actually how easy I found life
Wow.
here. And especially in Almaty, like, you know, there's everything. And to be honest, I probably have a better quality of life here than I do in Scotland because, things are a lot cheaper. And, one nice thing here is, so obviously in Scotland, we have a lot of mountains. But if you can't drive, which I can't, it's kind of hard to access them. And, you know, they're kind of far away. But here it's great. Like, you know, you can just hop on the bus and
Everything is so close, right?
It's so accessible. So, yeah.
When did you come here?
February 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ever since?
I've been home a bit. So I was like home for 3 months last summer. And I've been home a couple of other times. But mostly here.
What is the top
Nice, man.
things that you find good here in Kazakhstan?
Yeah, what
in
do you like
Almaty
about
and
Kazakhstan?
and maybe
Nature,
nature.
definitely.
Yeah.
And like it's also great, you know, like around Almaty, so many different things. Like we went to Altan Emel National Park and then in like 2 days saw landscape that looked like Scotland. Like if you just dropped me there, I would have been like, this is Scotland. You know, we went on a sand dune, we saw like Martian landscapes, like, and then, you know, you've got the mountains and lakes nearby.
That's
so
a variety of things around, right?
variety of things, yeah. I said Almaty is just great in terms of, you know, so many actually, do you know what one of my favorite things about Kazakhstan is Kaspi?
Wow.
It's so easy and convenient and
Cool. Yeah. We're
you-
proud of Kaspi.
yeah, you just need someone's phone number. Like for us, if you have to transfer
How about
money.
people? Come on, it's never the people. Always the nature, always
Well,
the food and all
I-
that stuff.
I
man.
thought that was kind of like
It's
a
never the
generic
people,
answer. So
Yeah, how about us? What do you think it was?
yeah, no, I really like Kazakhs. Yeah, it's very easy to get on with, and I find, well, again, especially I think my view is a little bit, you know, biased because I've mostly been in Almaty, so obviously I know that's not the same as the rest of the country, but you know, I feel like people have a pretty good understanding of like the rest of the world and like pretty well educated in terms of geography and history and that kind of thing. So that's quite nice because people in the UK
It
don't
is-
always
it's
have
true.
that.
It is kind of
Yeah.
our, like, you know, just even ask the kids. We got some general
You know, what
knowledge.
I'm, you know what I'm curious about is that, like, recently,
Oh yeah, thank you. Before, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so the people.
it's just like I asked my younger brother about if he knows where the Paris is, and then London, and he was like, "Isn't London in Paris?" And I'm like, like what the like? At his age, I was super good at geography. You know what?
Yeah.
And all my classmates were really good at geography. They knew everything about the entire
It's all that
world.
TikTok.
Yeah, and I'm like, when you start telling other people here in Kazakhstan that you're from Scotland, do they actually know where the Scotland is?
Most people do, I would say. Sometimes
think
because
so, most
obviously,
people,
because so obviously like Scotland's part of the United Kingdom, and so sometimes I have to sort of clarify, like, you know, the United Kingdom, it's Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, the four together, so it's part of it. So from that perspective, yes, but also that's kind of confusing. I mean, I don't even really fully understand the system myself, so it's kind of complicated having 4 countries that are also one country. But I would say, yeah, most people do. Yeah.
What is the first reaction? The usual reaction? Like, Scotland? All right. Is it Because we get a lot, right? Like while traveling, you say, I'm from Kazakhstan, and they're like, oh, right.
The Borat comes first.
Yeah. Well,
Something like that.
usually people, one of the first things that they always know about is like kilts, Shotlandskaya yuka.
Yeah.
So that's often, yeah. And obviously people find it really funny that like, men are wearing a skirt. So that's usually one of the reactions. But then, I meet a lot of people who say, oh, I'd like really like to go there because, it is a very beautiful
It is something
country.
really. I follow this guy, a photographer on Instagram. His name is Jan. He, I forgot his IG name. Yeah, whatever. He does some really nice, IG reels and some photos. And
Is he from Scotland?
yeah, he wears that. But he looks very manly and he makes it look good. Sometimes I want to wear it. To be honest, it seems very comfortable.
Well, that's not the only culture. I think
they're not the
Scotland
only
is
one.
not the only culture where they wear skirts. It's in Indonesia,
Do you think we should
in
start
Malaysia.
wearing it also?
Yeah, men look good in kilts, because
Men
people
look-
usually wear them to a wedding, and yeah, it's always nice seeing all the men.
Well,
in
that's
kilts
cultural thing,
at
and it's
weddings.
good, I think. Because who actually invented trousers? Who actually invented the pants?
Who did?
Arabs. You know why?
So they didn't get sand up there.
They were sitting on horses, so then that would be convenient for them to sit.
Well, Kazakhs also, we ride horses and we have.
Do you remember that fairy
Yeah, it's
tales
long.
about Aladdin?
Yeah, it's always like this.
yeah.
Kazakhs also had the same.
Yeah.
We also had the same trousers like this, so we would protect our body parts. Say.
Yeah.
So what do you want to say? What are you trying to say? Scottish people, they don't care
About what?
about riding horses.
No, I think it's just like cultural. But it's good. I mean, that people still keep to their
Is it?
cultures. Their
I'm sorry.
roots.
Is it? So it's nothing under. I mean, like you said, nothing. There's an underwear, of course. And
No.
nothing.
Well,
Is
so
it
the
something-
traditional thing is just to wear nothing underneath
really?
it. But as
That's
like
dope.
yeah, as I understand, like it's quite heavy, the kilt. Like it kind of like it it's like wraps around, and it's made of quite like thick wool actually. So it's quite heavy, and so it kind of rubs. So it's actually, I think it's like if you have the like underwear on, it's actually there's not really that much room for it. It's kind of like uncomfortable. So apparently I think it's more comfortable to
want
not
one.
wear.
Please, can I order one?
They're actually very expensive if you get like a good, a proper one. Yeah, like
I think it's just like the same thing as kimono or
I hope.
yukata in Japan.
Yeah.
It's super expensive. Though.
Nothing
Like,
would happen to me in Kazakhstan if I walk around that in our budget. Who cares? I'm
Yeah.
like you can buy cheap
Asian
ones.
Scottish. What do you want? I'm just enjoying myself.
Yeah. Good. I'm curious about your. I mean, I cannot mention that thing. I mean, your accent,
Oh,
because
Yeah.
I'm a really big fan of McAvoy
oh yeah.
and his movies, and then the way he imitates all those accents. And he's Scottish himself.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of accents too.
Too, yeah. And I like the way accent, especially Scottish accent, and then that episode from the movie where it was a sketch or joke or something, and they were sitting, the airlines, Scottish Airlines, McAvoy was sitting there like trying to like handle everything in his Scottish accent.
Oh
and
yeah.
How does it
super
go, though?
funny.
What's the Scottish accent? Like, how do you talk? Go back home.
Well, I know that I've talked to the girl. She's also a polyglot from Scotland, and her name is Erin. And then she told me that the word girl is girl.
Girl, yeah.
Or something like
girl.
that.
There's like an extra sound between the R and the L.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Once again? And then that's super dope. Like,
yeah, it's nice.
I usually have quite a, like, especially around foreigners, my accent is quite neutral, and some people even think to begin with it's quite American sounding. But once I go home, like if I'm around other Scottish people, like the accent really comes out. But like I used to teach English in Georgia, and most words I could say pretty normally, but some girl, world, and a living, I couldn't say without an accent. And I'd have like this class of like 30 Georgian children repeating back to me, girl, world, 11.
cool.
I'm like, okay.
It's like the same thing as like Nigerians teaching English here.
Yeah, man.
And then all of our students are like eventually
Nigerians.
start speaking
Kazakh.
Nigerian accent.
Yeah.
And then all of them like,
Yeah, because they need to double check that thing, Imagine your kid growing up, hello, who are you? I'm even though your school now, That's how they're gonna grow up sound.
yeah.
Just no respect, man. I love accents too, and I do a lot of accents, myself sometimes, just to
Yeah.
mess around,
But it's
sitting
cool.
with friends. Yeah, we should do one show like that, though. We
Yeah.
should do something like that, masked. Like you cannot see your face, and we do accents and we guess
Yeah.
like who's doing
impressions, accent impressions.
Yeah, like I'll take a couple of accents and you do some, the ones you know.
But though, I mean, Scottish people, are they tend to speak the same way they speak in Scotland around all United Kingdom, and then like
No, so in Scotland, like obviously like everyone learns standard English and whatever, but we have a lot of our own words and dialect. So for example, probably like one of the main words we always use is we, which means little. So we always say we instead of little or small. We would also like girl, we would say like lassie, a boy would be like a lad. So, we have all these kind of like, our own sort of words. And then there is also Scots language,
oh yeah,
which did used to be kind of much more its own thing, but it's sort of it got really stigmatized and sort of discriminated against, and so became more close to English. But there's sort of kind of a movement to revitalize it, and lots of books and stuff are getting translated into Scots language now, so you can get a lot of materials in Scots.
cool.
But yeah, some of it's, I don't know, do you know Train Spotting?
no,
Okay, so it's a very famous, originally a book and now a film, and it's about actually drug addicts in Edinburgh. Actually, drug abuse is a huge problem in Scotland. And the whole book is kind of written in Scots dialect. And it was really funny. My dad is English and my mum's Scottish. And my dad did literature at university, and he was trying to read this Train Spotting book, and he would have to go to my mom and be like, Don, what does this say? I don't understand. To get help with it.
that's cool. Yeah,
that's
and I'm really wondering how the Scot language sounds like, because I've never heard it.
we don't
Have you?
have that. No, we don't have like here. We don't know much.
Yeah,
To be honest, about Scotland, we know where it is. We know where it belongs and how it sounds.
we know about the accent, but to be
Yeah,
honest, but we
but
don't know
we don't
about
know,
the Scot
like,
language itself. Could you?
like
Yeah.
is there about your
Something?
culture?
I'm trying to like,
Is there any something weird about your culture, like something strange, like we eat horses, something like this?
Well, everyone knows that.
well, do you know about our national dish?
No.
Haggis?
I've heard haggis.
Yeah, so it's sheep's lung, I think lung, liver, and kidney.
Wow, that's nice. We love it.
Yeah, like chopped up, and then traditionally it's inside a sheep's stomach, but now they just use like a synthetic covering for it. But it's all with like spices and stuff like that.
That's
And
something similar, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sister.
Right?
Yeah, you're pretty close. Very close. We love all the organs of the sheep. Yeah. We eat that, the
Yeah.
head, the jaws.
But most people who come think it's pretty weird and they don't really want to try it. But then they have it and it's actually really, really tasty.
Good. Have you tried it yourself?
Oh yeah, man.
Kazakh.
Yeah. I have to admit, I'm not wild about horse meat. Like I don't dislike it, but I just don't. It's not my favorite of meats. Like I'd rather have beef.
But you were not
I
surprised about all those lungs and stuff right here when you first saw it.
No, that seems That's it.
That's
Well,
nice.
Because people get shocked.
Yeah,
A lot of
they do. But
foreigners get
I found horse meat in Italy in a supermarket.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I was checking it out. Like, is there any Kazakh? Who did this? Who
where are
killed
the
them?
Kazakhs?
Who owned this shop?
Yeah, and it was in like a small town
Hmm.
in Tuscany. It's a really small town and no foreigners, and they had it. So probably they eat. So it's okay.
Or there's a secret Kazakh community.
So yeah, you have to ask that the weird part where it shocks people. Like now we know. There's
Yeah.
nothing strange about it.
Yeah, everyone does it.
Yeah, we then okay, sheep is totally fine.
So, what about the Scot language? Could you say something? For example, it's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting to this podcast.
So I don't think I could say it in like proper Scots,
Well,
but I could
that's
say it
fine.
in like a kind of Scottish accent. It's like, it's pure dead nice to be here. What else did you want me to say? Sorry. Well,
It's okay. You can keep
Thanks-
talking.
thanks for
really.
inviting
It's
me.
nice.
Yeah.
welcome to the podcast. So te, like instead of to, and day instead of do, and
Indeed.
so there's our national poet, basically our Abai. He's called Robert Burns, and so there's a poem, and it's called Te a Moose, which is to a mouse. So, for
Te a
example, we
moose.
often so like instead of house, we would say hoose, and like yeah. But it's kind of hard because sometimes I don't know what's just like sort of an accent or this dialect and what's actually Scots language because they're kind of sort of a bit mixed. Like some of it's stayed from the language, and then
Scottish sounds like a Kazakh person that doesn't know English. It's reading in English words. Who's we will say
hoose,
something.
yeah.
Yesterday I was
Yeah.
watching a video. The guy, it was written design. The guy read the decision. So yeah, something like that.
Or I could say, for example, "War you fey?"
What?
"War you fey?"
Where are you fey?
So that's like
Where are you?
"War you fey?" So that's where are you from?
Wow. That's what I
That's
told
like,
you.
there's somewhere
Yeah.
like
Or your fee?
yeah,
All right.
at least we will read where are you from.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know
That
that
sounds like where you're flying. Where you fly.
I know that Scottish people tend to pronounce the R sound.
Yeah.
Harshly.
So we always roll our R. So that's like a big difference between Scottish and English. So it's much easier for us
Yeah.
to learn Spanish because we can roll that R.
That's right. And
Yeah.
what about the language politics in the UK towards the Scottish language? And then, because I mean, just touching upon this topic is that, as you know, the situation with Kazakh language is like, it's not super here. Like the condition of Kazakh language and the way.
And it's also very sensitive.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
sensitive
sensitive
topic
topic. But though, I
because-
mean, we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think there is something common
Yeah. Speak Kazakh.
between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so well, okay, so we have English and we have Scots, but then we also have Gaelic as well. So Gaelic is in Scotland and Gaelic is in Ireland. A lot of people always get this confused. They're very, very similar, and like almost kind of mutually intelligible, but they are different. But so Gaelic is a Celtic language, and then Scots is a Germanic language more close to English. And so for instance, so Gaelic used to be really widely spoken in like the Highlands and the Islands of Scotland, and everyone who lived up there would speak it. And then whenever it was 1700s, 1800s, when the parliaments joined together, after the Battle of Culloden, which was a big famous battle in Scottish history, the use of this Gaelic language got completely banned. And so this language basically died out, and then also with it died like a lot of the culture that went with it, because there was like a really traditional Highland way of life, like kind of also similar to Kazakhstan, like they had clans and that sort of kind of system up there. And so that whole way of life like died out, and like Gaelic speakers, they were banned from like gathering in groups of more than 3 and stuff like that. So that language got like almost eradicated. But there has been in sort of the last 15-20 years, there's been a big push to revitalize the language, and sort of now people can actually it's not as popular as Kazakh, and as I said, it didn't used to be spoken in the whole country anyway. It was only kind of in the Highlands and the Islands and the more remote parts. But there's now like, people can send their kids to Gaelic schools where they get taught in Gaelic instead of in English, and that's kind of becoming more popular. And now, for example, for instance, all the train stations, like the signs are in both English and in Gaelic. So there is kind of like a sort of revival of it. I don't think it'll ever become like as big as Kazakh, because, now everyone who speaks Gaelic, they also all speak English. There's nobody who's only a monolingual Gaelic speaker. And that part of the country now the Highlands and Islands now relies so heavily on tourism as like its economy that they're still gonna speak English. But yeah, like it's becoming more popular. And for instance, I used to have a friend who they worked in up on the Isle of Skye. I don't know if you're familiar with it, like one of the most famous, most beautiful Scottish islands. And they worked up there, and I went up to visit them, and like all the kind of young people who lived around there, like when they were talking with each other, they would use Gaelic to speak to each other, and then would switch to English if they were talking to us. So it is, I mean, it's definitely growing. I would like to learn it one day, like maybe in my retirement, maybe that's my retirement plan. I'll move to a Scottish island and learn Gaelic. And then, as I said, with Scots, it's a little bit, I mean, as I said, Scots and English used to be, like a couple hundred years ago, way more distinguished from one another. And then again, that's sort of, as I understand, there wasn't like a specific, like, trying to stop Scots language. I could be wrong with that, but like, it just kind of became very discriminated against. And even when I was a kid, like, for example, if I said, "Why are you fae?" like, "Where are you from?" like, my mom would give me into trouble because she'd be like, speak properly. Like, it was very sort of, looked down upon to kind of, speak in sort of this more kind of Scots way. But again, it's sort of, and again, there's much more overlap between, or more similar between Scots and English. And now kind of like, it's kind of like, what's Scots language and what's the Scots dialect? Like, it's, and some people argue, is it just a language? Is it a dialect? That's a whole other question, which
I think that's really interesting because that was the same condition. That was the same basically situation with Kazakh, right?
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of 2000s and then generally during the 90s, the attitude towards Kazakh language was so different rather than it is now, because, well, Kazakh language is becoming more popular, and I'm wondering if the same thing happens there in Scotland.
Yeah, well, as I said, like, there's lots of now, like, lots of books are being translated into Scots and stuff. Like, you can buy Harry Potter in Scots now,
nice.
Translation. And if you go on, like, the Scottish government website, I don't think all the documents, but, like, so I think all the documents are in English and Gaelic, and then quite a big number are also written in Scots as well.
What is that like? For example, in here in Kazakhstan, as I know, those people who would speak only Kazakh, the attitude towards them would be as if they are backwards or something.
Yeah.
Is that the still thing?
Well, as I said, I mean, I think it's changing. But, as I said, when I was a kid, and if I wouldn't speak like proper English, my mom would be like, "Oh, speak properly." But again, I also think maybe also similar to Kazakh, Scots, it wasn't such a written language. Like, to be, I'm totally not an expert on like the where it ends, the distinction, the history. Like, as I said, it's a bit clearer with Gaelic because it's like completely separate. And some Scottish people would get really offended if you said, "Oh, Scots is not a language," and I don't have a strong opinion on either way. I'm kind of like,
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's kind of similar, and it's also different from our situation.
Yeah.
Here. Now the Kazakh youth, you've been here for a while, you could see that it's changing.
yeah.
Our
But
friends.
at some point, we still have this bias towards Kazakh speakers.
It
Still,
is.
we
It still
have it.
does. It's still pretty strong.
Yeah.
And
Because being the Kazakh influencer on Instagram and being active on social media and doing all my content in Kazakh language, I see how people still divide into groups among themselves, and like those who make content in
where's
Russian,
the Russian
and those
content?
who are
When
making
they put
it in
out
Kazakh.
Russian something, they say, "Where's the Kazakh content?" It's
Exactly.
always like that. It's kind of weird. That's why, like famous people, they put out posts in both languages.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. So I think it still has something to do with something to do with your family. As a family man, you should take care of it. Like, make sure your kids get to understand all of it, and then let them know which one is yours. If it's a Russian household, it's okay. You tell them, like, this is your mother language, but this is the country you live in. So, you learn this. So it will help you in the future. You'll be more adaptive. It's going to be easier for you.
What about, I'm really curious about this. I'm really curious about the
something
thing.
like that?
Are there any people in Scotland specifically who wouldn't start learning English, like British English, in terms of being super conservative about their own language and their own culture, and then like being reserved? And then is there anyone like that? Because sometimes here in Kazakhstan we see the tendency of people who wouldn't like to learn Russian because they're like, "No, I don't need Russian in this country. I'm going to speak only Kazakh. So if someone wants to communicate with me, then you'd better
learn
speak,
Kazakh,
speak
right? Or
Kazakh
speak
or,
Kazakh,
or learn Kazakh? Is there anything?
Yeah,
like that?
no, like generally speaking, no, it's not that extreme. You know, English is our first language, and that's what, you know, everyone basically considers their first language. You know, there obviously are the odd, you know, people who are, you know, real like purists and sort of push that, but they're kind of, you know, very,
Yeah, plus it's part of the
very,
UK, and you know,
very
it's kind of-
extreme, and
Yeah,
yeah, and
I think that's different, right?
yeah, and I think the numbers would be super low,
yeah,
right? I wouldn't think that language will be. It's not big as big as Kazakh now. Is
No,
it on
no,
iPhone? Is it? Can you choose the
no,
language?
no.
So yeah, you that's how I measure it. So you
Yeah.
can find Kazakh language, so it's kind of
All right.
so the demand is there. You know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it's more of a, I don't want to say a novelty. I think that's unfair, but yeah, as I said, you know, it's just this thing of like,
But
you
keep
know,
going.
a lot of kids books and stuff like that, especially kids books, a lot of kids books in Scots dialect. But, and I think even, you know, maybe sometimes in schools now, they do it like, well, for instance, also like there's a lot of good Scottish poetry which is in Scots language, and like even when I was at school we would study that as well. Yeah, it's a lot of poetry in Scots language
I
actually.
don't think it's hurting anyone. I think it's a good thing. You
No.
know? Like this is a culture. This is a history. I think, you know, we should always try to, you know, save as many as possible. Save
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah, I mean,
There's something nice.
the way I, you know, when I'm speaking with my Scottish friends, you know, the way I speak is definitely very different how I speak to other people. You know, I use a lot of words that I wouldn't use with other people, and you know, obviously I have a much stronger accent than when I speak with other people, and you know, it's like sometimes that's really nice, you know, when I get home and kind of, you know, feel sort of a bit warm inside, like natural to speak like
Yeah,
that.
you'll just like distinguish
Yeah,
the language. itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not deliberate; it's just, you know, natural. That
Cool. Yeah, the same thing here. I think. I mean, once I'm at home, I started speaking Kazakh with my parents, with my brothers, and
us
then
too.
you're like, you feel that thing. You don't feel pressure at
Yeah.
all. Like
Mm-hmm.
you understand that
It's
you're
very
your
easy, very
comfort
natural.
zone.
That's where you are. That's who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
especially with my parents, we do the same thing. But at home, strangely, my daughter speaks mostly Russian. It's I think probably
she consumes a lot of Russian content. I guess.
a lot on the internet.
Yeah.
Mostly she's watching Russian, and
What can we do with that? That's a really huge topic. In fact,
I always search, bro. I always search for Kazakh content, and it's, you know, no disrespect. You know, I know a lot of people working on like it's shit cartoons, man. Really, the quality is, the quality is so low,
quality
and
is low.
I hate it. You know, I want to, you know, I would play something in Kazakh, and they look weird. It looks scary. You know, I wouldn't want to watch that.
and no content basically on YouTube, right?
Yeah, we should do something
content
about it.
creators.
Yeah, we probably, me and you, maybe we should.
We're doing that for children for
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, it is, and it's super bad. It's
Yeah.
very bad. So even on Netflix, you know, well, we heard that Kazakh language will be soon in Netflix. So that'll be great. That'll be great if, you know, my kids
That's a
can watch.
huge step towards the.
Yeah, it's coming close, but it's kind of
Content
weird. So yeah, like it's like I have a Russian daughter, and my son spends a lot of time with my parents, so he speaks mostly Kazakh.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep it that way, a bit longer, or you know, because
Yeah. What about families in Scotland? Like, do they speak Scottish, raising up their children, or is it like just naturally
I
mixing?
think, yeah, I mean, I think it's as I said, like I wouldn't make the distinction between Scots and English too strong, because it's, as I said, there's this kind of written Scots language that's very, very different. But the amount of people who actually speak like what's written anymore is like basically nobody, and it's more like sort of into English sort of words from that, or some of the pronunciation sort of, you know, leaks into it.
Yeah.
I would say that it's a little bit of a class thing. Like, you know, lower class people tend to speak much more Scottish, more slang, more dialect, and then, you know, more middle class, wealthy people tend to speak closer to, you know, proper. It's still with an accent, but closer to English. So it is quite a class division thing.
And what was your interest? I mean, since you are doing Eurasian Studies. What was your interest in Eurasia specifically? Like, that's an interesting.
So yeah, I mean, for a long time, I was, just very interested in, the former Soviet region, and I, traveled in Ukraine. As I said, I lived in Georgia for a while as well, and then decided to do my master's degree, and we had the opportunity to go to 6 different places. So we could have gone to Poland, Hungary, Ukraine, Georgia, Russia, or Kazakhstan. I didn't want to go Poland or Hungary because that was wasn't that interesting for me.
It's Europe.
Yeah, exactly. I'd been to Georgia, and I'd also traveled a lot in Ukraine, and I wasn't really interested in Russia, actually. Like, I've always been more interested in the other parts of the former Soviet Union, and so
It's very different, right?
yeah, and so I was very interested in here, and I did my master's thesis on language issues in Kazakhstan.
Whoa.
So it was like a really so I actually looked at the use of Kazakh language in employment and in the workplace, and if that was growing and if that was increasing, and I got inspired by this topic from a woman I met in Azerbaijan, actually. Who she was, I also taught there for a little while teaching English. And she was, so she was ethnically Azerbaijani. And, her whole family were ethnically Azerbaijani. She must have been maybe in her early 50s, late 40s, something like that. So she'd grown up in the Soviet Union, but she'd only ever grown up speaking Russian. And then she said at the collapse of the Soviet Union, she felt that she had to learn Azerbaijani in order to get a job. Obviously the linguistic situation there is quite different from here. But it was also interesting as well, one, that side, but also two, I mean, she'd been speaking Azerbaijani for, 20, 30 years at this point. But she said that she still didn't feel fully comfortable in it. Like, she didn't really like speaking it that much, even though she was, very much considered herself to be Azerbaijani. So anyway, so I was really interested in exploring that question further of, how do, people, with changing linguistic situations, how do they deal with, getting jobs? And so, I was looking at increasing Kazakh in jobs and stuff.
Wow. So what's the conclusion then?
The conclusion is nothing major has changed yet, but it's slowly emerging. And if my predictions are correct, I'll come back in 10, 20 years and find out, then it will be a changing situation because, more and more kids are going through Kazakh medium instruction school, and, more and more people are going to get high education in Kazakh, and so it'll increase. And then as Kazakh increases, there'll be more demand for Kazakh language services.
Movies, music in Kazakh.
Yeah.
That's very good. I like it.
So it was kind of like, I sort of found, bits of beginning to change, and then it seems like,
Well, it's good. It's good.
So
it's really cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
All
right. I think it's pretty much enough for today. Thank you, Tara.
Great.
It was great. It was great to talk to you.
It's great
to know
here.
a little bit more about the Scotland and generally about the culture and everything. Because I think a lot of people who are watching us, those who are learning maybe English, and maybe some of the foreigners are not aware about the Scottish language, culture, people, and everything. So today we try to open up the topic a little bit. And then for those who would like to search more about Scotland, you can go on Wikipedia or Google.
And for foreigners, who's planning to visit Kazakhstan, as you can see,
and we basically see
some
some
for a while.
we see some similarities between Scotland and Kazakhstan, which is pretty interesting.
Long lost brothers of ours. Right?
Okay, guys, thank you for watching our podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, write down your comments if it was useful for you, share this video with your friends, and support us.
Follow your boy Kung Fu Master, baby.
Thank you for supporting. We're going to touch the Instagram links right over here. So
bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye.